it has been announced that two Carolina Panthers legends, and I mean absolute OGs, will be newly inducted into the 2023 class of the Carolina Panthers Hall of Honor. Those two players are Julius Peppers and Muhsin Muhammad. So in this video, I'm going to give you all a little background information as to who is already in the Hall and why these two guys are ever so deserving of this honor as well. And we're going to get into all of that right after this.
I'm from the foe, you dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 2K. Trying to make sure my channel is popping before the season gets started next month. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the rest of the video. Now to give you all a little background information as to what the Hall of Honor is and who is already in it. The Hall of Honor was established back in 1997 with the first initial inductee being the first inaugural general manager of the Carolina Panthers franchise in Mike McCormick, and the second inductee was that man, the statue outside of the stadium right now, number 51, Sam Mills, the embodiment of keep pounding. These two guys were the first inducting class who the original owners of the team saw as the pioneers of what the Carolina Panthers became in the early days of the franchise. But for over 20 years after that point in 1998, no other players, coaches, personnel, anybody else had been inducted into the Carolina Panthers Hall of Honor until 2019, when four new players were inducted, be it Steve Smith, Jake Delhomme, Wesley Walls, as well as Jordan Gross. Now, ever since then, many people have speculated on who will be the next inducting class to go into the Hall of Honor. As the four guys that went in 2019, the story of the Carolina Panthers cannot be told without those four guys. So who has had an equal or even greater impact on the Carolina Panthers franchise? And that is how I believe that this determination as to who would be the inductees for 2023 was determined, and that is how we got to Julius Peppers and Muhsin Muhammad. So now that you know or have a little background information as to what the Carolina Panthers Hall of Honor is, let's talk about the inductees. The first player that we are going to talk about is, of course, none other than the greatest defender this franchise has ever seen in Julius Peppers. Now, in his time with the Carolina Panthers, Julius Peppers was an absolute unit, a machine, any synonym for an absolute Terminator that you have on the defensive side of the ball that you could come up with. His stats are absolutely impeccable, and I'm going to take the time to read off each and every one of them because he deserves it. So in Carolina Panthers history, he ranks first in sacks with 97, first in tackles for loss with 107, first in forced fumbles with 34, third in QB hits with 89, eighth in tackles with 349. This is a defensive end, eighth in tackles, seventh in games played in almost 30 years as a franchise with 154 games played. This is a guy that went and played elsewhere for about 5, 6, like around that many years of his career on the tail end before eventually coming back and ending his career with the Carolina Panthers, being an absolute beast, man. So with the Carolina Panthers, while putting up all of those stats while in Carolina, he was a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro. In 2002, he was the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and to this day, the only Defensive Rookie of the Year before, you thought I forgot, but I didn't, before Luke Kuechly, an entire decade later. This guy came in 2002. We did not get Luke Kuechly into 2012, so that just shows how big of a jump that was and how long of a tenure this guy had as the most dominant defensive figure that this franchise has ever seen. Now, he has the third most playoff appearances in a Carolina Panthers uniform, and he is tied for the fourth most playoff sacks in the history of the franchise. And him being so dominant, you can just imagine how often this guy was double teamed whenever he was out there on the field. Now, not only is he deserving of this Carolina Panthers Hall of Honor distinction, what he was able to do with his entire career speaks for why he shoe-in, a first ballot, and an absolute just lock for the NFL Hall of Fame when he becomes eligible for it in 2024. So some of Julius Peppers' most astonishing feats throughout his career are he is the only player in the history of the NFL with over 100 sacks and over 10 interceptions. I'll do you one better. He and Reggie White are the only defenders in the history of the game to sack 77 different quarterbacks. He and former Indianapolis Colts great Robert Mathis are the only two players in the history of the NFL to have over 100 sacks and over 50 forced fumbles. Julius Peppers is second in the history of the NFL in forced fumbles with 52. He is fourth all time in the history of the NFL in sacks with 159 and a half. He has the most interception yards by a lineman in the history of the NFL, and he has the second most block kicks in the history of the NFL, showing just how versatile he could be, getting out there on special teams, utilizing and showcasing that basketball leaping ability that he had, knowing that he was a basketball player at North Carolina before transitioning full-time to football, just showing that he can get out there and be a force on special teams as well. This guy was an absolute beast, baller in every aspect of the game. Any coach would love to have him, and the only regret that I have seeing this guy is knowing that he retired from the game 2 years before we drafted Brian Burns. You all do not know what I would give to have seen just 1 year of having the past and the future just overlapping. Man, that just would have been amazing, man. So finally, I want to share what is my favorite moment that I have ever had with Julius Peppers. Now, first off, I'm going to give an honorable mention. That being, I had the honor of seeing him back in 2017, putting forth yet another astonishing feat, being one of only 5 players in the history of the game to have over 10 sacks at 37 years old. That man was damn near 40, and he still gave us double-digit sacks back in 2017. But my favorite moment, and what will always stick with me, is the fumble return that he had back in 2004 against the Atlanta Falcons and Michael Vick, because the energy that I felt in my household around family and friends was electric. But just knowing and just thinking back to just how much the Falcons used to whip our ass, man, a play that impactful, and seeing our guy out there on defense making that play, finishing it, putting points up on the board, although he wasn't the one that got the initial strip. Just seeing that will always stick with me. I was only around 9 years old when it happened, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. So with that being said, man, I just want to extend a congratulations to Julius Peppers and a thank you for all that he's given to my favorite team. He is ever so deserving of this award. So, man, all I got to say is clap it up for Pep. There go, Pep. All right. There go, Pep. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Can't wait to see you inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, next, we have to talk about that bad man Muhsin Muhammad. Now, although the prime of his career and the majority of his career was during my younger days, I'm talking about prior to the time that I was even a teenager, I can remember a lot of impactful times and big plays that Muhsin Muhammad made back when I was still a young guy. But if you want to know yourself just how impactful he was and just how great of a player he was for this organization in terms of his Panthers stats and in Carolina Panthers history, the first notable thing that we are going to have to acknowledge that is that he was the first offensive skill player to be drafted to this team to make a Pro Bowl and or All-Pro back in 2004. Although Kerry Collins made a Pro Bowl as a quarterback in 1996. In 2004, all of 8 years later, was the first time we have a drafted offensive player to get league-wide recognition on our way to, just demolishing the league in that year. But in terms of his overall output throughout his time in Carolina, as it currently stands, almost 20 years later, he is still second in receiving yards with 9,255. He is second in catches with 696. He is second in receiving yards per game with 59.7. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody watching this video knows exactly who is first in all of those stats, but knowing just how great this guy is, just know that Moose was right there with him in his prime and even a step ahead in other times. So knowing who is who got number one, being number two is not bad at all for the Carolina Panthers franchise. In 2004, he had the greatest receiving output in Carolina Panthers history in terms of receiving touchdowns with 16, which led the entire NFL, as well as becoming an All-Pro in 2004, man. So this guy, as I mentioned, is one of the most impactful and not even one of the second most impactful and the second greatest receiver this Carolina Panthers organization has ever had. He is one of only two Pro Bowlers and All Pros, being him and Steve Smith are the only guys to ever earn those honors in the 28-year history of the Carolina Panthers franchise, man. So now I just want to share a few memories about Muhsin Muhammad. Now, what jumps to my mind immediately, man, when I think about Muhsin Muhammad has to be his touchdown celebration, the crossover between the leg celebration. Now, it reminded me so much of playing NFL Street back then, and even more now. It's just a nostalgic feeling seeing him do that, man. So if you understand, or you were playing the PS2 back then, or Xbox, whatever you were playing, and played NFL Street, you would know that those players did all types of animations and stuff like that all the time. But Muhsin Muhammad will actually do it on an NFL field, on after scoring on somebody, go up, moss somebody, and then do a crossover with the ball. As a child at the time, that was so cool to me, and that's just something that I will never forget, and that will always stick with me. But the moment that will always stick with me is what I'm pretty sure everybody knows is his greatest moment, and to me is one of the greatest moments in NFL history, despite the loss, be it his 85-yard touchdown reception in the Super Bowl, in our Super Bowl against the Patriots back in 2003-4. I always get it the year whatever mixed up, but that play, I've seen it 1,000 times. It flipped the game. The Panthers were in it. I was only 8 years old at the time. I was at a Super Bowl party. Everybody went crazy. It is one of the core memories that I have as a Carolina Panthers fan, and I had it before my 10th birthday, and it stuck with me. And I'm 28 years old now, and it's 20 years later, and I still remember it like it's yesterday. And Muhsin Muhammad was able to give that to me. Now, the final thing I want to say about Moose is the greatest contribution that he made to this Carolina Panthers franchise may not have been anything that he tangibly put out there on the field. We may not be able to see it in the numbers, or we may not be able to see it when we go back and look at box scores. But something that was revealed in a recent interview with Muhsin Muhammad when he went on the Cut to It podcast with Steve Smith. They had a hour and a half long, informative, emotional interview, and around the end, when it came down to those guys about to close out, Steve Smith mentioned, and these guys just started having a heart to heart, and he mentioned in so many words, without just trying to paraphrase, there would be no Steve Smith, no Agent 89, no Smitty without Muhsin Muhammad, without him being big bro, without him showing him the ropes, without him providing that inherent competition in camp, in practice, in all of those things. So Muhsin Muhammad being who he was and being that mentor to who did become the greatest player in this franchise, and him being the one to pass the torch to him, and being somebody that our GOAT, the Carolina Panthers GOAT in Steve Smith, him looking up to, and Steve himself giving credence or giving, just attributing some type of just thankfulness to Muhsin Muhammad to making him who he was today. That is undoubtedly the greatest thing that he has ever provided to the Carolina Panthers organization, man. But with that being said, those are my thoughts on this inducting class of Julius Peppers and Muhsin Muhammad to the Carolina Panthers Hall of Honor, man. What do you think about these two guys? Who do you think will be the next two guys coming up maybe in the coming years? They didn't do it for 20 plus years. I don't know how long it's going to be before the next class, but man, leave your thoughts below. But if you enjoy content hearing about these classic players or these Panthers legends, please be sure to click the video on your screen. It is a video that I did a few months ago. I'm very, very proud of it, but it did not get that much attention. I give a retrospective view about the first couple draft picks that this Carolina Panthers franchise had. So if you think the 90s Cowboys had it bad and they were going through some drama, you definitely need to hear about what the Carolina Panthers had going on when they were first established as a franchise. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. I am Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out. Peace.